All right, can people online hear me? Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Nick Zahowski. I am a project manager at the Seattle Police Department. And I'm also the project manager for the Technology-Assisted Crime Prevention Pilot Project, which we're going to be presenting today. Also joining me on this presentation are Carrie Keefe from the Mayor's Office, Captain James Britt from SPD, and Deputy Chief Barden from SPD as well. Next slide. All right, before we get started, just going to go over some ground rules and some background information. Public Records Act notice. Reminder that, first of all, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted online afterwards. I'm going to repeat that. We're going to record this meeting and we're going to post it online afterwards. So if it's okay, we're going to start recording now. Also, the information provided, including comments at this meeting to the City of Seattle, is considered a public record and may be subject to public disclosure. If you want to look at that in detail, you can look at the Public Records Act in the state code, chapter 4256. Next slide. Some WebEx basics for folks who are joining us online. Participant etiquette. Everybody is muted. We will call on people as we take comment at the end of the presentation, and so we'll unmute you. And in terms of chatting, there's a chat icon on the toolbar at the bottom of the screen, and you can select the drop box and choose who you want to chat to. Troubleshooting audio. If you're having problems with your audio online, there is a settings button. If you go to the ellipses on the bottom bar and choose audio connection, and you'll be able to test your speakers and microphone and camera, and select audio connection to change the way that you are connected. You can also call in or get a call back on the audio connection as well that way too. So hope everybody can hear us and see us. Some WebEx basics for dial-in attendees. For those who are dialing in, it's a little bit different if you don't have the computer interface. Once the meeting starts, if you'd like to leave a comment, you press *3 on your phone, and that virtually raises your hand on the phone that we see as well. And then you'll hear the prompt. You raise your hand to ask a question. Please wait to speak until the host calls on you. So again, if you are on the phone, if you're dialing in, *3 will allow you to virtually raise your hand. To hear a list of commands available during the meeting or the event, press ** on your phone. So again, if you're dialing in and you want to hear the list of commands that you can do on your phone, press **. If you no longer want to leave a comment or the host has already called on you, press *3 to lower your hand, and then you'll hear a message you've lowered your hand. Again, this is for people dialing in. *3, raise your hand. *3 again will lower. In-person basics. For in-person attendees, if you would like to comment, please indicate that on the sign-in sheet out there on the table. If you didn't indicate that you want to leave a comment when you came in, you decide later on that you do, please go out and Henry right there will sign you in, because we're going to call on people as from that sheet for public comment. And we'll call on your name when it's your turn to speak. We're going to alternate between in-person and online just to keep things equal, probably every 5 speakers or so. All right, some ground rules for this meeting. Please be respectful of diverse opinions and experiences. Be an active listener during presentations. Anyone exhibiting disruptive behavior, intimidation, or aggression may be muted online or on the phone, or in person asked to leave. If so, you can still provide comment online or by letter. And we ask that you please keep your comments under 2 minutes and related to the technologies and focus to allow everyone an opportunity to speak. So under 2 minutes, we would appreciate that. So the city of Seattle's definition of surveillance, it's defined as technologies that observe or analyze the movements, behavior, or actions of identifiable individuals in a manner that is reasonably likely to raise concern about civil liberties, freedom of speech or association, racial equity, or social justice. And just a reminder, some technologies are excluded from that definition, such as police body cams, and technologies for everyday use, they're excluded from that particular law. Next one. So public comment period, you can comment today. The period is from February 5th to February 29th. You can publicly comment here at this meeting or online. You can also comment online if you go to the link that is up on the page there. You click on that link, and you can go to on that web page. You'll also see these individual links to the technology. So if you want to, comment on specifically on closed circuit television, CCTV, click that link. AGLS, sometimes referred to as gunshot detection, or real-time crime center, you can comment specifically on those technologies. You can also mail a comment to the Surveillance and Privacy Program with the address up there. So public hearing format, SPD will present the following new technologies. The first one is closed circuit television cameras. We'll refer to it as CCTV in the presentation. The second one is acoustic gunshot location system, or AGLS, sometimes just referred to as gunshot detection. We just use the acronym. We like to use acronyms, AGLS. Real-time crime center, again, we'll use the acronym RTCC with this just to keep things short. And after the presentation, we will we'll be accepting public comments, both here in person or online or over the phone. Okay, so we'll begin our presentation, and we're going to start off with Carrie Keefe from the Mayor's Office. Carrie. Carrie, you're muted. You should be able to unmute. Oh. Oh.
There. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's Mayor Harrell's belief that everyone, residents, workers, tourists, students, and children across Seattle deserve to be safe without fear of being a victim of crime. Data shows that gun violence, human trafficking, and other persistent felony behavior is concentrated at specific locations. An effort to prevent these crimes have proven to be challenging, even more so and particularly in light of the severe staffing shortage with SPD and especially Seattle Police Department Patrol and Investigations units, which impacts the effectiveness in being able to address these criminal occurrences. The use of technology-assisted crime reduction measures will help Seattle Police Department police more effectively and efficiently by leveraging evidence-based industry standard technology. This pilot project will use CCTV coupled with AGLS in discrete and defined areas with high concentration of gun violence, human trafficking, and/or persistent felony behavior. The location for this pilot project will be data-driven decision. And there's been a preliminary assessment that's identified the 3rd Avenue corridor from Union to Virginia, Pike Pine, and parts of Belltown, as well as Aurora Avenue North and/or the Chinatown International District area as potential locations for this pilot project. This will be an evidence-based pilot project of 1 year with a broad base of data collected and analyzed to determine if the desired outcomes are being met, including deterrence of criminal behavior, quicker response times, increased clearance rate, better evidence gathering, reduction of 911 calls, and increased community satisfaction and security. The closed circuit television camera system will assist investigators in collecting evidence related to serious and violent crimes, including homicides, assaults, and other offenses. The CCTV system can aid investigators in identifying suspects, clearing the innocent, and removing deadly weapons from the street, thereby reducing the risk of harm to the public. This camera system will be public-facing with no facial recognition capabilities. The AGLS system will assist investigators in collecting evidence related to gunshot incidents and provide precise location information to responders. This information will direct officers and EMTs to a more precise location, enhancing the collection of evidence that helps remove illegal firearms from our community and provide justice to crime victims. Studies show that this technology is being promising in preventing crime and assisting criminal investigations when it is coupled with the CCTV and other crime reduction measures, such as environmental improvements, increased patrol, and public support. There will be signs posted announcing that location, the presence of the CCTV and AGLS at each location. The Real-Time Crime Center provides a centralized location for real-time information and analysis. At its core, RTCC software integrates dispatch, camera, officer location, gun detection, 911 calls, records management systems, and other information into one pane. This allows and provides for situational awareness to increase officers and the public's safety. Having real-time accurate information in one place increases the reliability of the location of victims and suspects and enables quicker aid to be provided to both and safer apprehension. Having better visual and spatial suspect information will help reduce unnecessary stops by the police, focusing their efforts on verified location and accurate descriptions. In the midst of unprecedented gun violence, human trafficking, and other felony behavior, the time is now for this technology-assisted crime reduction measures to help detect, deter, and respond to crime. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Captain James Britt with the Seattle Police Department. Before I go into the presentation of the technology, I would like to briefly introduce Deputy Chief Eric Barden, who's going to speak about the mission of the department and how this technology can support that effort. If the host can unmute Deputy Chief Barden, please.
Thank you. I'm Deputy Chief Eric Barden, in charge of the operations side of the police department. And we're looking for ways to improve our efficiency and effectiveness. We have a challenged staffing situation at the moment. We're down a number of officers. So everything that we do is designed to improve our efficiency and effectiveness. So processing of information, of available information, public information is such that we can more precisely deploy officers to specific crimes or specific issues and have more impact as a result of that. The areas mentioned by Director Keefe have been long-term problem areas for us. We don't have the ability to deploy officers in a preventive, as many officers in a preventive capacity as when we are more readily staffed. So the ability to deploy officers and get officers to crimes that are occurring or have just occurred as quickly as possible with the most amount of information available improves our capabilities, our ability to maintain public safety and to provide the public service that our citizens expect from the police department. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate that. Once again, to introduce myself, my name is Jim Britt. I'm a captain with the Seattle Police Department. My role over at the department is to oversee technology and innovation. So as you can imagine, this project kind of fits squarely in the wheelhouse of where I spend a lot of my work. Before we get into describing the technologies that we'll be asking for approval for, it's important to note the mission of the Seattle Police Department: to prevent crime, enforce the law, and support quality public safety by delivering respectful, professional, and dependable police services. We'll talk today about these three technologies, and I hope that I can bring back each of those to how we intend to use them to support these missions, and how we are going to safeguard the privacy and the concerns that I have no doubt will be raised today. We do not take this technology lightly. I hope that comes across in this conversation today, and we look forward to your thoughts. Nick, if we can go to the next slide, please. The first technology we'll be talking about today, as was mentioned, was the closed circuit television system technology, CCTVs. The Seattle Police Department proposes closed circuit TV camera systems to help deter and detect criminal activity. The CCTV camera systems are proposed to be installed at specific locations where gun violence, human trafficking, and persistent felony crime is concentrated. The cameras will face toward the street, sidewalk, and other public areas, and signs will be posted identifying their presence. Privately owned security systems can and may also be share video streams of public areas with SPD. It's worth noting that any privately owned security systems that would be shared only with the permission of the owner of the system, and only in the manner, nature, and timing with which the owner agrees to do so. If we can go to the next slide, please. Why we wish to use this technology: CCTV camera systems will assist investigators in collecting evidence related to serious and violent crimes, including homicides, assaults, and other felony offenses. The CCTV camera system can aid investigators in identifying suspects, clearing the innocent, and removing deadly weapons from the street, thereby reducing the risk of harm to the public. It's worth noting here that it will not be used to simply surveil areas where there is no current or active crime going on. We will not be having personnel in the real-time crime center simply staring at a camera or a bank of cameras waiting for something to happen. The use of these cameras is intended to aid in the response to actual events in progress. So we will not be simply sitting there staring at a bank of computer screens. We lack the desire. We also lack the personnel to do so. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Data collection. CCTV data is temporarily stored in the system for a maximum of 30 days, unless it includes evidence of a crime, and it is then stored in SPD's Secure Electronic Evidence Storage. Seattle Police Department Policy 7.010 governs the submission of evidence and requires that all collected evidence be documented in a general offense or incident offense report. Next slide, please. The protections. As I said at the top of this, we are acutely aware of the concerns that can be raised about each of the technologies that are being deployed here as it relates to civil liberties, and we are very conscious of making sure that we safeguard those civil liberties while we are deploying this technology. In order to minimize inadvertent collection of data, the CCTV cameras will be placed to capture events in plain view in public areas where, as a matter of law, no reasonable expectation of privacy exists. CCTV video recordings are automatically purged after 30 days, unless the footage is collected as evidence in a criminal investigation. Additionally, the CCTV camera system will maintain a complete audit log of activities which can be viewed at any time by the Office of the Inspector General for Public Safety. Next slide, please. Each of these technologies will have a rather extensive slide that lists the related policies. I can go through each of them, but they're pretty extensive. The first one is the Code of Federal Regulations related to criminal justice information. There are 2 RCWs that reference the Public Records Act and the State Criminal Record Privacy Act. There's a Washington Administrative Code related to the auditing of criminal history record information systems. There's the Seattle Municipal Code for the collection of information for law enforcement purposes, and then various SPD policies, which include standards and duties, responsibilities of employees concerning alleged policy violations, bias-free policing, collection of information for law enforcement purposes, submitting evidence, department-owned computers, devices, and software, criminal justice information systems, criminal justice research, department records access, inspection, and dissemination, use of department email and internet systems, and use of cloud storage services. It's a rather extensive slide. It's available again online for anybody who wishes to view the recording. It's available there, but I know there's a lot of information on that slide that is available to the public. Next slide, please, Nick. The second technology that we will be presenting today is Acoustic Gunshot Location System software, known as AGLS. The Seattle Police Department proposes an acoustic gunshot location system to accelerate the response capabilities of police and EMS personnel to aid victims, locate and preserve evidence, and hold accountable those responsible for gun violence. AGLS utilizes microphones and sensors placed in a defined geographic area that are programmed to detect the sound of gunshots and locate and alert police to the incident. Next slide, please. Why we wish to use this technology. An AGLS will assist investigators in collecting evidence related to the incidents of gunfire and provide precise location information to responding personnel. This information will direct officers and medical staff, EMTs, firefighters, to a more precise location, enhanced collection of evidence that helps lead to justice for victims, and the removal of illegal firearms from the community. Before we move on to the next slide, I think it's worth noting here that when we respond to reports of shots fired in the community today, unless we are called by a direct witness to the event or a party involved in the event, oftentimes these calls come in as a witness hearing shots to a certain direction of where they are. Oftentimes our dispatchers are fantastic at being able to tie several different callers together and help us narrow down the field of where we need to look for either victims or evidence. The purpose of the gunshot location system in this particular case is to help us focus that, what oftentimes is referred to as precision policing. Rather than wandering around an area looking for where an event occurred, AGLS is meant to help us pinpoint that location and, as Deputy Chief Barden mentioned at the beginning, be more efficient in how we respond to these types of events. Next slide, please. Data collection. Acoustic gunshot location systems capture audio above 120 decibels, which is well above the normal decibel level of human conversation. This audio is collected for a brief time before and after the incident, as well as during the incident. The system calculates the location of where the shots occurred. SPD Policy 7.010 governs the submission of evidence and requires that all collected evidence be documented in a general offense or incident offense report. Next slide, please. The protections, once again, are critical here. We are well aware of the concerns that can be raised related to civil liberties and gunshot detection systems. Only authorized SPD, OIG, and OPA users can access the AGLS data while it resides on the devices. Access to the systems and the technology is limited to authorized personnel via password-protected login credentials. Data may only be viewed or extracted for legitimate law enforcement purposes as governed by SPD Policy 12.050 and will be securely stored in a cloud-based environment. The retention period is determined by whether the data holds evidentiary value. Data without evidentiary value is overwritten in approximately 30 days. Next slide, please. Much like the first technology we spoke about today, there is a series of related policies, which includes, once again, the Code of Federal Regulations related to criminal justice information, 2 RCWs related to the Public Records Act and the State Criminal Records Privacy Act, the Washington Administrative Code for the auditing of criminal history record information systems, the Seattle Municipal Code related to the collection of information for law enforcement purposes, and various SPD policies, including standards and duties, responsibilities of employees concerning alleged policy violations, bias-free policing, collection of information for law enforcement purposes, submitting evidence, department-owned computers, devices, and software, criminal justice information systems, criminal justice research, department records access, inspection, and dissemination, use of department email and internet systems, and the use of cloud storage services. With that, we will move on to the third and final technology we're presenting today. The Real-Time Crime Center, also known as the RTCC. RTCC software provides a centralized location for real-time information and analysis. At its core, RTCC software integrates dispatch, camera, officer location, gunshot detection, 911 calls, records management system, and other information into one, quote, pane of glass, in other words, a single view. The software is used to alert real-time crime center staff to a serious criminal event, see multiple streams of information overlaid on a map, and convey that information to officers who are responding in the field. Much of our experience in law enforcement and research done has shown that the more information officers have responding to an event, the higher likelihood of a desired outcome in the end, where people are less likely to be harmed, and it reduces the likelihood of a force encounter. Next slide, please. Why we wish to use this technology. RTCC software helps provide situational awareness to increase officer and the public's safety and reactively investigate incidents. Having real-time, accurate information in one place helps increase reliability of the location of victims and suspects, enabling quicker aid and safer apprehension. Having better visual and spatial suspect information will help reduce unnecessary stops by officers, focusing their efforts on verified locations and accurate descriptions. To put it plainly here, this will help officers stop the correct person instead of relying on what can oftentimes be rather vague descriptions, and they end up making a stop to investigate a person who ends up not being involved. So the more information we have, the better we are at getting the right outcome in the end. Next slide, please. The data collection. The RTCC software integrates data from other SPD systems like closed-circuit TV cameras, acoustic gunshot location systems, automated license plate readers, records management system, dispatch, geographic information systems, or otherwise known as GIS, and 911 calls into a centralized location for real-time information and analysis. Access to the systems and technology is limited to authorized personnel via password-protected login credentials. Next slide, please. The protections in place. Again, this software understandably raises concerns, and we want to make sure that we are safeguarding and helping alleviate some of those concerns by safeguarding privacy and the civil liberties of the people. Only authorized SPD and Inspector General users can access the RTCC software platform. Access to the systems and technology is limited to authorized personnel via password-protected login credentials. Additionally, the OIG, much like every other system in Seattle Police Department, will have unfettered access to verify how it's being used by the Seattle Police Department at any time. Data in the RTC system may only be viewed or extracted for legitimate law enforcement purposes as governed by SPD Policy 12.050. The retention period is determined by whether the data holds evidentiary value. Data without evidentiary value is overwritten in approximately 30 days. Next slide, please. Once again, the related policies. This one is a little bit longer. There are two CFRs that are listed here, which are the Codes of Federal Regulation as it relates to criminal justice information and criminal justice systems operational policies. 3 RCWs listed, including the Washington Public Records Act, Violating Rights of Privacy, and the Washington State Criminal Record Privacy Act. There's a Washington Administrative Code, the Auditing of Criminal History Record Information Systems. There's a Seattle Municipal Code, the collection of information for law enforcement purposes, and various SPD policies to include standards and duties, responsibilities of employees concerning alleged policy violations, bias-free policing, collection of information for law enforcement purposes, submitting evidence, department-owned computers, devices, and software, criminal justice information systems, criminal justice research, department records access, inspection, and dissemination, use of department email and internet systems, and use of cloud storage services. Data-informed policing, also known as evidence-based policing. is what we spoke about at the very beginning of this when Chief Barden mentioned that we need to be more efficient. As we have less officers and an increasing mission, we have to continue to become more and more efficient. And this is where precision policing comes into play. How we accomplish precision policing in the use of this technology is in these 5 pieces. It will allow us to respond quickly to the correct scenes, investigate thoroughly, identify correctly the suspects that we need to locate, safely arrest those suspects, and then prosecute effectively with the evidence available sent over to the court system. Next slide, please. Performance and disparity measures. The performance measures, as Director Keefe mentioned at the beginning, we will be monitoring a varied group of stats and information to determine the effectiveness of this pilot over the coming year. The other piece that we will be measuring and evaluating in real time is unintended disparity outcomes. The Seattle Police Department is conscious of the potential for disparate impacts technology can have on various communities. In addition to metrics to evaluate the effectiveness of these technologies, the department's Performance Analytics and Research Unit will be monitoring data to identify unintended impacts on these communities, including over and under service, and will adjust the use of the technology to minimize or eliminate these impacts. This will be an ongoing process, not one we wait a year to look at. We will be monitoring in real time these various metrics to determine whether we are having an unintended effect and do our best to mitigate those effects as we proceed through this pilot. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it back over to Nick to get the public comment going. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance today. We look forward to hearing your thoughts, and we will look forward to rounding up the answers to any questions that are asked and work to get those answered by the next meeting. Thank you so much for your time today.
If there are questions, the responses will be posted.
Sorry, they can't hear us online, so give us 1 second. We're getting them unmuted.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, you can hear me now. So for those online, sorry about that. Please use the raise hand feature, or if you're on the phone, *3 to raise your hand. And as I mentioned, comments submitted will be logged and responses will be posted online as part of the SIR. Please remember, roughly 2 minutes or so per comment so we can get through everyone here. So with that, why don't we start in person? And we have the sign-in sheet here.
Let's see.
Looks like Pedersen?
Thank you. First, I have a lot of questions, and one is that it looks like to me there have not been enough studies about this. I would like to see evidence of the studies and how they worked. I think the after effect study or data collection that you mentioned will be after the fact. Also, with regard to SPD, I think anyone can look at the OPA and see how many of these concerns are trespassed on every day with very few repercussions. And also, it seems like the city, when we talk about someone, we don't have enough officers. I don't know why it isn't acknowledged that so many quit after the 2020 protest after it was proven in court that the SPD violently harmed people. So perhaps that's why a lot of people quit and why people don't want to work here. We have many, many techniques that work to reduce all of these things. There are community organizations that have been very successful helping people to reduce violence in communities. I don't think we need this at all. I'm very concerned about the effects this will have on people.
Okay, thank you so much. We're gonna do a few in here and then we'll kick it to off. Sorry. And then we'll kick it to online in just a minute. Let's just.
Okay, next is Cynthia Spice. Cynthia?
Hi, in the RTCC, sir, it mentions that it might be cloud-based. Data stored off-premise has the potential risks of being subject to legal requests for that data from the platform provider, such as subpoena or warrant requests for ALPR data for vehicles used by and or CCTV of people visiting Seattle from Utah or other states for reproductive health care. SPD using cloud-based solutions for handling or storing any of the city's surveillance data puts people at increased risk, especially women, immigrants, and trans folks. How specifically will SPD prevent the RTCC platform from being used by judges in other states to get around Washington State's SHIELD law? Given that SPD has had an RTC since 2015, will the 2024 SIR, if passed, be a second real-time crime center, or will SPD replace their existing real-time crime center with a new product? And aside from the features that utilize technologies SPD doesn't already have, such as CCTV and AGLS, which of the RTCC features listed in the SIR are already being used by SPD? Will other law enforcement agencies have access to the SPD RTCC? And if not, then will SPD share data with external entities, including other law enforcement agencies, via the RTC directly? Or will only existing data sharing channels be used, such as those for evidence and wanted bulletins? In the CCTV, sir, SPD says that they will not use AI face recognition tools. Will SPD also not use any gait recognition or other biometric identification tools if present in the CCTV system? If no biometric identification tools will be used, then will they be administratively disabled system-wide? Or is it the responsibility of individual users of the system to know and adhere to a policy advising not to use such? Since the CCTV SIR proposes SPD having access to privately owned CCTV camera feeds and also says elsewhere that signage will be posted, then does this mean that SPD will be posting such signs on private property next to where those cameras are located? In the item 2.1 in the CCTV SIR says that the reason for using these cameras is to deter and detect felony criminal behavior. Does this mean that the SPD will only be using the CCTV cameras for instances of serious felony crimes? Will the examples of the proposed signage for the CCTV cameras be added to the SIR? Let me just finish this really quick. Be added to the SIR such that the signs will look like, what they will say, how large they will be, and where they will be placed in relation to the cameras themselves. Will there be signs in multiple languages? And will there be an auditory announcement in the vicinity of the cameras so that blind and low vision residents are also informed of the camera's presence? Thank you.
Thank you. Donna? Is there a Donna? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Donna Stringer, and I'm here as a representative of Proactive Persistent People for Progress, a community group in Seattle working on democracy, both locally and nationally. You have a number of pieces of data and research, and you will receive comments, both pro and con, about these issues. I am not here to argue for the use against or for surveillance software. Rather, I'm here to ask that you do two things to uphold your public commitment to serve the needs of safety in this community. First off, I want to ensure that you have reviewed all of the data available on these systems, not just those that support your suggestion or your needs or your ideas about what you want to do. Secondly, I would ask that you slow this process down and proactively seek more information from the most vulnerable communities and those most most affected by the presence of gun and gun violence. There is no research right now about what kind of outreach has been done or will be collected from affected communities as part of the racial equity toolkit process. As always, when deploying new surveillance technology, we must consider the potential impacts on the most marginalized and vulnerable. My request then is that these decisions be conducted in a thorough, equitable, transparent, and accessible manner. These decisions are too large and too long-lasting to be rushed or to be made by just a few people or the loudest voices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We are going to try to get some of the comments from the folks who are joining online or dialed in. So let's see. We need the mic, just one sec.
Okay, we will start with Kathleen Johnson, and then Casper, Milo, and Matt. Okay, and I'm going to mute you first, Kathleen. Sorry, we're having a bit of an interesting sound situation.
All right, thank you for this meeting and this information, and thank you for posting materials online in language. My organization, Historic South Downtown, is a state-created organization that exists to promote good governance and mitigate the negative impacts of land use decisions and large-scale public development in Pioneer Square and CID. I hear your concerns about efficiency and the ability to accurately dispatch officers and emergency services, particularly in light of recruitment and retention issues. Regarding CID's experience, I know that there have been several incidents in the last couple of years where calls were made seeking police response that was ultimately untimely or did not occur. Two of the more prominent incidents occurred. One of them occurred last September with the hate attack on the wing. And then in 2022, there was a shootout on 8th Avenue South one night in between Lane and Dearborn in front of ICHS. It resulted in several staff cars being shot. There was a home for Asian elders. And in both cases, multiple calls were made by fluent English speakers for police response. And they gave accurate information about the ongoing event and the location where the response was needed. And again, it was either untimely or it didn't occur. And these are not the only two cases. And so given all of that, and given our experiences, and given that your staffing issues are unlikely to be solved in the short term, how will SPD and Major Harrell's office work to make sure that this need for efficiency in dispatch and precision of policing in all cases, both where witnesses are available and where these technological tools are used, how will you ensure that the efficiency is put into place, and what are your ideas for increasing that as you use these in real world application so that people are responded to? And how will you ensure that the tech tools are not elevated for response because the calls are coming from a place where the tech tools are there and you can use them, but in fact, areas outside of those with appropriate human calls for help are responded to?
Thank you, Kathleen. Casper, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Good morning. My name is Casper. I live in the Central District 98144, and I will be giving comment on behalf of the Seattle Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. We are an organization of individuals living in Seattle committed to the protection and preservation of civil liberties everywhere, with a focus on work within the city. We are opposed to the implementation of technology-assisted crime prevention, aka surveillance tech. SPD has failed to build a trusting relationship with the communities they police. We have no reason to think the use of surveillance will keep us any safer. On the contrary, SPD has a problem with its officers abusing their position to stalk and harass others. In 2021, Officer Andrew Swartz was placed on administrative leave after the department reviewed credible stalking allegations. In 2022, Officer Detective Greg Tomlinson, according to the OPA's own findings, engaged in conduct unbecoming of a Seattle police officer through his continuous unwanted attention to another police officer. In 2023, Officer Marcus Jones was was disciplined for stalking a domestic violence victim he met while responding to her 911 call. These individuals are still police officers and will be in a position to access incoming surveillance technology. Furthermore, these are certainly not the first or only cases of their kind. One need only Google Seattle police and stalking to see how long this has been an issue. The police do not have the trust of the community. We do not trust that the police won't use this technology to stalk, harass, and intimidate Seattle residents. In closing, the Seattle Alliance is opposed to the use of CCTV cameras, acoustic gun location systems, and real-time crime center software. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper. Milo, we're going to go to you, and then Matt will come back around after some more in person. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Howdy. My name is Milo. I live in Capitol Hill, District 3, and I am here because I would like to publicly oppose the proposal to use CCTV, ShotSpotter, and Real-Time Crime Center in the name of public safety. My issue with this idea is that it stems from the fact that these tools promote and enable racist profiling. They have been proven by other cities who have tried to use them to be ineffective, and I find it annoying that this plan seems like a waste of money when we could be using that money to find solutions that actually promote public safety. So for CCTV, the study I'll reference in your own impact document states that it has, quote, no observed effects for violent crime. And other studies have shown that it doesn't promote public safety, but instead dangerously increases racial profiling. For ShotSpotter or AGLS, it's very clear based on other cities' attempts to use this technology that it simply does not work. In Chicago, initial police responses to 88.7% of ShotSpotter alerts found no incidents involving a gun. The false alarms cause police to show up more frequently to marginalized neighborhoods in a heightened state, thinking that there's gun violence, which is not a winning formula for police to foster good relationships with the people they are hired to serve. This technology is a waste of money for the city and seems likely to waste our limited staff police force's time chasing false alarms. Now, regarding RTCC, it uses privately owned cameras, allowing them to bypass laws and restrictions that normally limit police, such as having to get warrants. This creates conditions that are ripe for police abuse with little to no oversight. This is problematic as our police force strives to win the trust of our citizens after countless instances that they lost that trust, such as laughing and downplaying the murder of Janabi Kandula. As an alternative, I would like to see violence interruption programs and more investment in mental health treatment, substance abuse treatments, and affordable housing. The current proposed tech tools are a cheap ploy to appease the public by AI washing them to believe that progress is being made instead of actually taking the time and effort to address the issues that cause people to turn to violence. And worst of all of them have been shown to contribute to increased racial profiling. On that basis alone, and given that your plan is to use it, then see people get profiled after the folks likely already have been profiled and face legal consequences, I don't believe that this proposal should be allowed to continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to kick it back to some in-person comments. VSP, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring back the idea of how important it is to really inform and receive feedback from the communities that will be most affected by this, namely the residents and the businesses of the neighborhoods where we're going to be implementing this technology. And since this is such a rush process, I'm not sure that the people that are actually living there, working there, that have their livelihoods there are really informed of what this would do and how it would affect them, or even like get a chance to really put their opinion forth. And I'm sure that many of them would comment that this technology would not only feel extremely invasive to their daily lives, but it also might not actually prevent crime so much as just document it. And I know that SPD is facing a huge obstacle and challenge right now with so much distrust in their services from the community, from the city of Seattle that has been going on the past few years, and that's limited your staffing and your capacity. But maybe that just indicates that that is really where you need to be focusing your resources in repairing and rebuilding those relationships and receiving and really listening to the feedback that the community is giving, which is just emphasizing and consistently saying that we really want real people-oriented solutions and community resources provided, instead of just replacing those solutions with machines and technology.
Thank you. Okay. I believe it's Agnes. Okay.
Yes, my name is Agnes Govern, and I'm also a member of P4 and a Seattle resident. I also want to speak to the process as others are speaking to other issues with the technology itself. This public hearing is based on an incomplete initial draft, making it impossible to knowledgeably comment. Here is what is missing and what I would expect to have time to comment on. The data research you cite, in fact, in a very quick browsing of it, basically says it benefits is primarily in its use in car parks and residential areas and narrowly targeted to vehicle crimes and property crimes. This is not how you are suggesting it be used. There is no evaluation plan regarding meeting of the goals. There are no references listed for governments who can speak to their implementation experience. There are no academic consultants or other experts listed. And there are no organizations listed as inviting to participate in this public process. That seems the most egregious omission. The timeline you outline is not consistent with the process outlined in your own surveillance technology policies and procedures. The SRI report is to be done in stages, stated as a sequential process. It appears your own process is being compressed with essential steps happening concurrently, leaving inadequate information available for informed public comment. The draft report is to be reviewed by the Surveillance Advisory Working Group before being submitted to the council. However, the information I could find on this group indicates that the 7-member group has not met since mid-2023. It does not have full membership to achieve a quorum. How can the surveillance impact report be completed and submitted to council without this element? Also, the acquisition and implementation timeline is very rushed. You're expecting a second quarter acquisition and implementation in the third quarter, yet there is no longer a procurement process. There is not yet a procurement process underway in terms of your own document. In terms of the racial equity toolkit question, the inclusion criteria does not flag potential that the technology disparately impacts disadvantaged groups. Yet the racial demographic information included in your report, in your initial report, shows potential areas where the technology is to be used are not representative of citywide demographics. How then can there be no potential for disparate impacts? And most importantly, we need to know the current data on the potential locations where the project is to be implemented so that we can compare it to data collected to see whether or not this pilot project is in fact useful. The data should be available on a regular basis to meet the goals of transparency cited in the report. For full transparency and accountability, we should know in the potential target areas the current incident of gun violence, human trafficking, and other felony crimes. And I would say human trafficking as that term is normally used and not how it's used by the city. Current 911 calls, current public response times, crime clearance rates, and community satisfaction. The most problematic area to evaluate is likely to be the goal of minimizing crime displacement outside of the pilot area. The impact report must address how that will be evaluated, especially given that this calls for placement of technology and signage in specific areas. This seems like it's ready-made to move the activity associated with public safety concerns outside of the target area, as we have seen with other issues addressed by the SBD. Our group also believes in the mayor's belief that everyone should be safe. Perhaps we disagree on how to make that happen. Our ask is that adequate public notice and outreach for public hearings regarding these technologies, rather than the current perception and appearance of a rush to check a box regarding public input, and that there's adequate information to respond to a complete surveillance impact report, expecting that the areas I've identified as inadequate would be addressed. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, let's do one more here, then we'll go to online. It looks like Dr. Rose King.
Okay, I wrote this to try to help. Yeah, my name's Rose King and I live in District 3. I have 2 jobs in Seattle. I teach biochem at the University of Washington and I work at a young adult shelter. I value data-driven solutions and I care very deeply. I came on today because I'm highly concerned that this technology will be solely used to further persecute, harass, and mistreat the poor and marginalized in Seattle. which are already the people most likely to be bothered by police here. I don't believe that we can fight gun violence with further police violence. I don't believe it will work. What do AGLS and CCTV do? Research shows that they do increase so-called protective pat-downs and searches, which is why the MacArthur Justice Center has filed a class action lawsuit against AGLS. They do enable misuse by law enforcement officials, which has already been seen in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. What do these not do? They do not reduce gun violence and do not get victims to safety quicker. Again, as shown by research. So these are not treating the actual problems. What I heard today as justification for this surveillance technology was three things, I think. One, don't worry, the surveillance will only be concentrated in poor communities. This is shameful to me, that's all I'll say. Two, don't worry, if you're not committing any crimes, we won't be watching. I guess that's sort of the typical justification, and is that in writing? I don't know. Three, don't worry. This is only for a year, then we'll analyze this data, and I guess for that I do have just lots of questions like, is that true? Is that in writing? Is this tech only going to be established for a year, and then we'll stop it while we analyze the data effectively? And that kind of leads me into the overall thing is I support these earlier comments. I think we need to slow down and review the data on this. And just please provide the resources to the community that you're using to determine that this could positively impact gun violence. I think that's kind of your overall gist here. And then, yeah, also just reach out to the communities that you're saying you're going to target. Talk to the people that live there. These are your duties, right? Is review the data, talk to the people. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, back to some online comments.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Hi, thank you. I am just wanting to add my voice to support some of the comments that have already been made so eloquently. I didn't have time to write my comments out, so apologies if this is a little rough. But essentially, I just wanted to add my voice to those that are calling for this process to be slowed way down. It seems like it's being pushed through really quickly without proper consultation with the communities that are going to be most affected by the technologies. And in fact, I mean, from the presentation today, it sounds like you haven't even really decided which communities these technologies will be tested on in this next year. You keep saying either Aurora or the CID. I mean, how could we be like halfway through the month where it's supposed to be the process for community feedback on these technologies, and you guys haven't even figured out which neighborhood the technologies are going into? So I think it's really important to just slow the heck down with this. The other thing I'm very concerned about process-wise is that, I've been following this since the budget was approved last year. And just to remind everyone, when the money was put aside, the 1.5 million was put aside for this pilot program, there was a council budget action that came along with it. It was SPD 900A, if anyone wants to look it up. Part of what that said is that the Office of Civil Rights has to be collaborating with the mayor's office in preparing the racial equity toolkit for these technologies. And so far in all the materials and in this meeting that I've seen, I don't see any evidence of the involvement of the Office for Civil Rights. This concerns me greatly. I also want to say that part of the language in this council budget action is calling for, public hearings for community input and testimony, inviting participation from the city council and targeted community outreach. So it's a little bit confusing for me. Is this the public hearing? Is this the targeted community outreach? Was there any outreach done to any of the communities that are being considered for trying out this technology? So I have many questions about process, as many others have raised today. And so I hope you really will slow down and get everything together before you proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know we are at 1, but we want to make sure that the other folks who have their hands raised or have signed up on the sign up sheet get a chance. So if that works for you guys, we'll just keep going. Another online.
Okay, Casey, I will be unmuting you.
Hello, my name is Kelly. I'm a resident of District 4, and I'm commenting to fully oppose the piloting and use of surveillance technologies. As mentioned by previous commenters, a study conducted by the MacArthur Justice Center into the use of AGLS technology such as ShotSpotter out of Chicago over a period of approximately 21 months from July 2019 to April 2021 found that, quote, 89% of ShotSpotter's reports led police to find no gun-related crime, and 86% turned up no crime at all, amounting to about 40,000 dead-end ShotSpotter deployments, end quote. The City of Chicago's Office of the Inspector General conducted its own research and found that, quote, data examined by OIF does not support a conclusion that ShotSpotter is an effective tool in developing evidence of gun-related crime, end quote. This technology, and especially considering the proposed locations of both AGLS and CCTV, is predominantly, if not solely, used to surveil and harass communities of color, especially Black and Latino communities. Evidence of over 68 metropolitan counties that adopted AGLS technology found that over a period of 17 years, from 1999 to 2016, this technology has no significant impact on firearm-related homicides or arrest outcomes, and that AGLS is only 2 seconds faster than a 911 call from a 2017 study. To Seattle specifically, the use of AGLS technology and the proposed contract with ShotSpotter presents a significant conflict of interest re personnel. Lynn Hauserman, the Corporate Vice President of Emergency Call Management at Motorola Solutions, who holds a significant financial investment in ShotSpotter, was chair of the board of the Seattle Police Foundation from 2022 to 2024. I would find it difficult to believe that having a person with vested financial interest in both SPD and ShotSpotter technology would not present a conflict of interest. If the City of Seattle is invested in the well-being of its citizens, perhaps it could redirect funds from the SPD's $17 million budget increase allocated to so-called ghost staff positions that are fully funded yet remain vacant. These funds could be directed towards measures that address the root causes of crime, which include a lack of safe, stable, and long-term housing, voluntary drug treatment and healthcare, and overall meeting the basic needs of all people. If SPD is truly interested in preventing crime, enforcing the laws of this country, and the quality of public safety, perhaps the surveillance technology should be trialed and tested on SPD personnel, among whom includes the officers who killed and mocked the death of Janavi Kandula, who have not faced any significant consequences.
Okay, thank you. Erica? Okay, Erica, we're gonna unmute you now.
Hello, my name is Erica Olson. I'm a homeowner in District 3, and I also wanted to stage my comment against investing city resources in the CCTV, AGLS, or RTCC. I do not want my tax dollars to be spent on ineffective technology that will lead to even more biased policing and police abuse. If you want to reduce crime, invest in our community instead. Additionally, I'm interested to know why it was so difficult to find any information on this hearing. With that, my trust in the surveillance technology being used responsibly is extremely low. This meeting was not listed on the council's website. It was a huge pain to try to find it. I'm glad that everyone here was able to find it and able to comment and able to add such intelligent comments, and I really look forward to the answers to all of these questions. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Felicia, you are up and we will unmute you.
Hi, my name is Felicia. I'm a resident of the Central District 98122. My neighborhood has been heavily impacted by gun violence, especially in recent months, and I have fully opposed this proposal. I want to reiterate that this process has been rushed and that the communities affected have not had an adequate amount of time to examine this proposal and voice their opinions, and that it doesn't seem that there has been adequate outreach to communities where this surveillance would be enacted. Increased surveillance in public spaces would not prevent crime, but would rather increase policing and harm caused by policing on marginalized communities, including people of color, unhoused folks, low-income folks, and unarmed protesters. I want to name that the police force has a monopoly on violence, including gun violence. Violence conducted by community members has been proven in sociological studies to be a result of historical and systemic harm through poverty, lack of access to basic needs such as healthcare and housing, and the systemic impacts of racism. The funding that would be utilized for this proposal to prevent crime would be better utilized if devoted to the root causes of crime, including affordable housing, healthcare, social services, and other services that would meet the actual needs of people and improve their well-being. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll jump back to some other folks in the room here. I think it is Stefan. Stefan, okay.
Hi, my name is Stefan, and I guess my question regarding this is, I question how SPD can ask for our trust when we know how they feel about us as civilians, especially considering the lack of care and accountability for the killing of Kandula. We even heard and saw that with the surveillance technology that was in that car. If this death of this one innocent person was done with existing technology, I wonder what the expansion of that will do. How can we trust that if we seem to be unable to use the current technologies at hand to enforce public safety, that we would be able to do that with an expanding of technologies, as well as the mental distress of residents being watched at all hours of the day and being listened to on certain effects. It feels like instead of fighting crime, we now view everyone as a criminal in these areas and they must be watched, as well as the cost of this. This seems like a very flagrant promise of not to be looking when we know that this power has been and will be abused. I refuse to live in a perpetuated police state here. And I question that this was the best move by leadership available, was to go through this. My questions are also, what are the metrics of this progress and how can we trust that these numbers will not be inflated in order to continue and perpetuate these very serious situations that we're looking at here, as well as when we have the evidence that these technologies, when implemented, often fail and end up costing us as taxpayers more money than they do in the protection. The study as well mentioned the McCarthy justice proves that time and time again. So thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I appreciate the folks who are willing to also show their faces upon hearing criticism.
Okay, up next, we have a Jane.
Can you hear me? Hi. Not my real name, but I already don't trust the police. As a trans woman, as a white trans woman, I'm still pretty privileged, but I don't really feel safe already. And I just wanted to kind of like point everybody's attention to the future, to the laws that are being passed in many states and cities against me and my community. And that the Republicans who will probably win the presidential election, either this election cycle or the next, have promised to enact nationally. And I guess I'm just wondering where this will end. If those things become legal and my existence becomes illegal, will you use these systems to punish my existence? Will you use these systems to punish people for abortion care, like was mentioned earlier? There have been no private citizens who have come here today to express their support. I'm expressing my dissent along with everybody else. And I am just, well, I mean, I understand, but I'm confused as to why this solution was chosen when there literally are proven solutions to alleviate the factors that lead to the kinds of crime you're ostensibly trying to prevent in the first place. If 30 years of military technology, surveillance technology, increased brutality has not failed to prevent crime in any meaningful way, why are we being asked to go along with your foolish assumption that this will be used to prevent crime in the future? Going back to the misuse of law and policy, I just want to point out, like many people have, that you murdered Genevieve Kandula over a year today, and there still has been no justice or accountability under your existing laws and policies. You rattle off a litany of new laws and policies, and I have zero confidence those will lead to any kinds of justice, no matter how enshrined in law and legal code there are. I was at a trial for a community activist a few weeks ago, and while the jury was hung, they all agreed unanimously that his actions were not were just, were altruistic, even though they were illegal.
Can I get can the folks online still hear us in the room? Okay, all right, cool. Let's do one more online. I think it's Seattle Voting Citizen is up next. Gonna unmute. Okay, Seattle Voting Citizen, you are up. Okay. We will circle back if your hand remains up. We can't hear you. Seattle Voting Citizen. We will try to troubleshoot some technical issues online. I think that there was another comment here. Would you like to? Okay, we're trying to troubleshoot that.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to ask and comment some more. So in case it's unclear, I do oppose all three of these technologies, and my questions are kind of highlighting the lack of clarity for some things inside the surveillance impact report. So some additional questions would be, item 4.4 in the CCTV SIR says that there's an evaluation plan. Will that evaluation plan be getting added to the appendix in the SIR so that the public can see that and review it? Item 3.3 in the CCTV SIR doesn't mention any privacy-specific training for the CCTV system, such as training that advises that the cameras must not have their pan, tilt, zoom altered to look inside private residences or stalk, harass individuals, or to otherwise use the system for personal reasons. Will SPD be creating privacy training specific to the CCTV system? The SIR says that SPD plans to retain CCTV data for 30 days. Retaining the CCTV data for such a long period of time enables stalkers to issue Public Records Act requests, potentially repeatedly, for CCTV data to use against their victims. But 30 days is the maximum retention period, not the minimum, and the exact guidance in the retention schedule is for 30 days after the last recording or until determined that no security incident has occurred, whichever is sooner. Is SPD saying that it takes 30 days to figure out if a crime occurred at a given location? The CAD and RMS data should be sufficient to somewhat quickly determine if a crime occurred, like say 48 hours. Will there be granular access controls, such as regarding not everyone with read access to the CCTV system feeds would be able to change the pan, tilt, zoom of the cameras? Item 1.7 of the RET and the RTCC SIR says that SPD is enacting a specific policy codifying the allowable circumstances under which SPD may utilize CCTVs, AGLS, and the Real-Time Crime Center software. Where is that draft policy, and when will it be included inside the SIR for the public to review? What alternatives to the RTCC has SPD previously implemented or considered? Why was a suite of costly, likely ineffective surveillance technologies selected over community-driven crime diversion solutions? In the RTCC SIR, item 2.3, SPD says that the sources of information that are being integrated include automatic vehicle location, AVL system. Is the AVL that is planned to be integrated in the RTCC only GPS data from SPD-owned vehicles, or will it have private vehicle GPS data? Item 1.3 of the RET and the RTC SIR says the technologies are location-specific, but with a place-based focus, meaning that they will record people who choose to be in a public place where the technologies are being used. This mitigating factor reduces to an extent the possible disparate impacts of potential police actions. So aside from telling residents to stay home, what measures will SPD be taking to mitigate the risk of racial bias in these surveillance technologies, especially given that the pilot locations selected by SPD are disproportionately communities of color? Has SPD already issued a request for proposal or request for bids for the RTCC? Those are the questions I have. This is such a rush process. I haven't even gotten to the acoustic gunshot location system. So this is just what I have for now, but thank you.
All right, thank you. And that's all for our in-person list, but I do think we have one more online. So Ruben, we are gonna unmute you.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was the person in line before, but hadn't allowed my microphone access. So thanks for letting me to speak again. Yeah, so my name is Ruben Gelblum. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've been a Seattle resident for 9 years. I'm calling in today to state my strong objection to all three of these proposed technologies. As others have already said, these technologies have been shown to not be effective at their stated goals, and in fact have a demonstrated track record of leading to worse, more violent, and more racist responses by police. Additionally, these are being pushed through in a rushed, undemocratic process, and what's worse, in the context of an already tight budget where other programs are being cut. SPD has shown itself to be an unaccountable and wasteful department that regularly engages in disproportionate violence, especially towards poor, Black, brown, and queer residents of our city. Here are just a few headlines from the Divest SPD website, just from the last few months. SPD print tech mishandled evidence, falsified lab records. Seattle cop arrested for DUI after crashing into a ditch. Cop chased the wrong car through South Seattle at nearly 100 miles per hour. Cop punched man who swallowed drugs to save him. SPD's third highest paid cop caught napping on the job in a bus lane. And again, this is just from October. This is who we're supposed to trust with this grossly enlarged surveillance system. Why don't we redirect funds to support people who actually live in Seattle through housing, healthcare, and direct income, things that are actually proven to improve lives and reduce crime? Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other folks online with a hand up? Okay. Well, I'm going to pass it back to Nick.
Thank you, everybody, for attending, listening to the presentation, and commenting. We will take the comments and respond to them, any questions, and post them online in the links that we pasted in this presentation, and are available on the surveillance website, ITD surveillance website. With that, we'll conclude today's meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you.